Shalonda Holmes. I am a graduating senior at Dillon University, and I will be presenting to you my research, and it is the link between childhood sexual abuse and obesity. The theme of it is the psychology of food. The current major epidemic known as obesity is also known to be caused by either a genetic or environmental factor. One potential risk factor may include the experience of childhood sexual abuse. Childhood sexual abuse is a major epidemic that is recurring at a significant rate all across the world. The reason for this research is to potentially expand the correlation between childhood sexual abuse and obesity if there is an existing correlation. So what I'm trying to do basically is see if there is a link, an actual link between obesity and those who suffer from obesity, if they've been sexually abused as a child, and if that has anything to do with as far as them binge eating. So my hypothesis is, if someone, male or female, has experienced childhood sexual abuse, then they are at risk of experiencing obesity during their childhood and adult life. So the link, I found numerous articles that they tried to make a correlation with it. It hasn't yet been proved yet, but among many other rarely communicated endemics, childhood sexual abuse and even sexual abuse as an adult represents a range of psychiatric traumas, interpersonal issues, complications, and abnormal behaviors. One of those abnormal behaviors is the binge eating disorder. Binge eating disorder is when a person regularly eats large amounts at a time. It becomes a vicious cycle, eating to feel better, then feeling even worse, and then turning back to food for comfort. So while they're trying to cope with what has happened, and probably trying to cope with the failure of close relatives or anyone giving them the support they need in that time of trauma, leads them to eat, and it leads them to think that that's a proper coping mechanism, and it eventually leads them to becoming overweight. My literature review came from Erik Erikson's Stages of Psychosocial Development, explaining that in my case, that parents and other caregivers must be aware of and sensitive to children's need at each stage of their development and support them in a time of crisis. In situations where a child is sexually abused and is not acted upon, they can try to cope with the trauma by eating. And this is what I was talking about, the binge eating disorder, which is located in the DSM-5, which we have become very acquainted. My methodology is what psychological statistics define as a correlational research. It's a correlational research because it's a type of non-experimental research in which I, the researcher, measures two variables and assess the statistical relationship and example the correlation between them with little or no effort to control extraneous variables. The researcher, myself, will administer a survey to a population of random individuals, male and female, that will, in the beginning, include questions about gender, age, and have they ever been sexually assaulted or sexually abused as a child. Because the questions are really sensitive, there will be a professional counselor or someone at, in the place of in which the survey will be administered. This is basic research because I am not attempting to create a solution, but to gain knowledge and understanding of the experience, feelings, and emotions toward the topic. And this is also defines as qualitative research. I'm just looking for how a person is feeling about this, about my research. So in conclusion, when one's emotions and self-image has been damaged, it has the potential to lead them into an addictive behavior to cope with their reality. The purpose of this research is to only find the answer to a severe epidemic, but to also advocate. So it's not only to just find the answer and to find the link, but it's also to advocate what one of these things that has not been properly addressed. It has been ventured upon, but it hasn't really been pushed out as an issue. So that was my sole purpose for doing this research, because it's a great question, and we don't want to always assume that people who are obese just love to eat. Sometimes, and a lot of times, when we find ourselves in bad situations, we find ourselves eating. So when you go through traumas like that and you don't have the support that others may have, you can lead to anything. You can lead to food. Some go to drugs, some go to alcohol. But for this, by the thing being the psychology of food, I wanted to focus on that link. So I wish to further my research at a higher level. And I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate your interest, and have a great day. Thank you.